my WWE Over the Limit 2010 pay-per-view review. The pay-per-view was live last night exclusively on pay-per-view. As far as this pay-per-view, I'm not going to go as far as what some people have been saying, that this is like one of the worst pay-per-views of all time, or this is, you know, something really bad. But what I would say about this pay-per-view is one of those WWE pay-per-views or mainstream pay-per-views that is kind of like the typical, you know, throwaway pay-per-view, which is unfortunate in nature with this pay-per-view because actually on paper going into it, it looked like it possibly could have been a good pay-per-view, but it was pretty much just nothing more than, you know, throwaway pay-per-view, and I would say close to almost average, a little below average pay-per-view. That's what I would say about this pay-per-view. And the first match of the evening was Kofi Kingston versus Drew McIntyre for the Intercontinental Championship. And this match was going along pretty good. You saw some good back and forth action, but the only problem I had with this match was it was way too short. They only gave it probably about a little over 6 minutes. And it, like I said, it was going along pretty good. You saw some good back and forth action. And the end of the match came when Drew McIntyre, he was going for his Future Shock DDT to Kofi Kingston, and Kofi reverses it to the S.E.S. for the victory for the 1-2-3. And Kofi becomes the new Intercontinental Champion in a 2.5-star match. Pretty solid opener, probably one of Drew McIntyre's better matches he's had so far within his WWE career. And I thought they probably could add even a better match if they were given a little more time, because they were actually having some good chemistry. They're actually working pretty good, and unfortunately they only got about 6 minutes, which was the shame of this match, because it was actually going along pretty good, and it was actually going along better than I was even expecting, but ended too short, and like I said, 2.5 stars. And then after the match, you see Drew McIntyre. He gets on the mic. He calls out Teddy Long, wants Teddy Long to reverse the decision, make him the Intercontinental Champion again. Teddy Long doesn't come out there. Then Matt Hardy's music hits. Matt Hardy comes out there. Him and Drew McIntyre brawl in the ring. Then Matt Hardy hits the Twist of Fates to Drew McIntyre. So looks like you're going to see Drew McIntyre and Matt Hardy's feud continue. And since Drew McIntyre is going to be preoccupied with that feud with Matt Hardy, maybe we'll see an Intercontinental title feud with Kofi Kingston and Christian, which I think will be very good, or a Kofi versus MVP feud. That will work out pretty good as well. But even a Christian and Kofi would even be that much better if they would do something like that, even though I feel Christian should be in the title picture, in the main event picture of SmackDown. But if they go the route of him and Kofi, I won't have too much of a problem with it, because they had a great match on SmackDown a couple weeks ago. Then the next matchup was R-Truth versus Ted DiBiase. Now, this match, I was, you know, not looking forward to it too much, but I do like both competitors. I like R-Truth and I like Ted DiBiase, but for some reason or whatnot, these two just didn't have very good chemistry. It wasn't, you know, a good match at all. They weren't really gelling well or meshing well with each other in the ring. I'm not going to say it was a terrible match, but at best I would say it was a watchable match. And the end of the match comes with R-Truth hitting the corkscrew elbow to Ted DiBiase. Now, apparently the reason why they went this route was it's been reported that Ted DiBiase suffered a concussion within this match, so that's possibly the reason why they went this route. And for some reason, I don't know what part of the match that he suffered the concussion. Maybe that's the reason why they didn't have some good chemistry, or it kind of felt like it was dragging on in some nature, and it was just a match that should have been on Monday Night Raw. Even in the first part, this and probably the match before, probably, you know, just matches that could have been put on television, especially the Intercontinental title match before this, since that didn't get much time. This match just felt like it was dragging on a little bit. Like I said, they didn't, you know, coexist well. They didn't, you know, mesh well in the ring with each other, and R-Truth picks the victory up in a 2-star match. Then the next matchup was CM Punk versus Rey Mysterio. This was the Straight Edge Society Pledge versus hair match. And unfortunately, like the CM Punk and Rey Mysterio feud so far, they've had good matches. This was another good match they had with each other, but it wasn't that classic, that match of the year candidate, or just a great match between these two. It was just another, you know, very solid to good match between these two. And at the beginning, I would say the first portion of the match kind of dragged on. It felt kind of boring at first, and during this match, about, you know, halfway into the match, CM Punk, he gets busted open a little bit, and then you obviously have the paramedics come in there, you know, wipe it off and stuff like that, and that kind of hurts the match when they do that. I mean, I understand WWE doesn't want to, you know, do the whole blading thing and having the wrestlers, you know, bleed and stuff like that, but if something happens in a match where it's just an accident and, you know, it's not nothing that's going to really cause harm to the person, then don't interrupt the match because it kind of hurts from the match. And obviously the crowd always hates it when this happens because they always either chant bullshit, boring, and just stuff like that when this happens, and it kind of hurts the quality a little bit of the match. They need to stop doing that and messing up the match like that, because it didn't mess up the match too much, but I just hate when they do it. It's very annoying, I would say, especially when it's just, you know, not too much blood or anything like that. They should just, you know, say, okay, it was just an accident. It's not like the arenas are going to fine you, you know, some huge amount or anything like that. But after that, you know, the second part of the match, you know, really started picking up. Good back and forth action in that part of the match, and that was pretty good. And you saw some good counters, good reversals, and good back and forth action with those two. The ending of the match, I would say, kind of came off pretty weak, I would say. The ending of the match was CM Punk got hit with the 619 from Rey Mysterio. Then Rey Mysterio went for the springboard splash to CM Punk. CM Punk moved out of the way. Rey Mysterio fell flat. And then CM Punk goes for the pinfall, kind of a nonchalant pinfall, a cocky pinfall. Then Rey Mysterio reverses into a crucifix pinfall for the 1-2-3. So that was the ending of the match. So CM Punk is the loser of this match, and he has to be shaved bald. And after this, some people might say after this it was kind of overbooked. I would say it was okay. Match-wise, I would give it about 3 1/4 stars. Like I said, good match, but still not the classic match you would expect from a CM Punk versus Rey Mysterio. And then after the match, post-match, when Rey Mysterio is about to, go shave CM Punk bald, you see the Masked Man come in there, get involved. He's beating down Rey Mysterio. Then the other members of the Traded Society, Serena and Luke Gallows, come out there. They're all beating up Rey Mysterio, beating him down. Then Kane makes the save. Kane has all of them retreat, and Kane and Luke Gallows, they brawl to the back. And then this leads CM Punk and Rey Mysterio there, and there was two pairs of handcuffs. CM Punk gets handcuffed to the ring in a crucifix position outside the ring, and CM Punk then gets kicked numerous times by Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio even hits a 619 while CM Punk is handcuffed to the ropes, and then just keeps on kicking him, and ends up shaving his head. And CM Punk was just selling this very good. He was making it look like he completely despised this, completely hated the idea of this, and just told a very good story with this. And I thought he did a good job, and it was booked pretty good after that part right there. And then CM Punk was kind of like shielding his face, didn't want anyone to see him. Then Serena came out there, had a towel, put the towel over him. Then after that, they take him to the back, have the Masked Man and the hooded Masked Man and Serena take CM Punk to the back. They have the towel over him, wanting no one to see what he looks like now. So I thought that was pretty good post-match, what they did right there. And I think it was put together pretty good. But match-wise, I think they could have had a better match. It was still a good match nonetheless. Then the next matchup was the Hart Dynasty versus Chris Jericho and The Miz for the Unified Tag Team Championships. And this is the one match I would say that didn't disappoint. This did actually live up to my expectations. Very good tag match between these two teams. Really good. You saw some good stuff with Chris Jericho against both Tyson Kidd and David Hart Smith. The Miz did some good stuff in here as well. Just a very good overall tag team match, and that's something that you really don't say that often when it comes to mainstream wrestling, especially WWE, that you actually see a good tag team match, especially in WWE, because WWE treats the tag team division like utter garbage and makes it seem like it's meaningless, which they shouldn't do that. And hopefully with a feud like this, like the Hart Dynasty and Chris Jericho and The Miz, they could maybe try to bring some meaning back into the tag team division. And the Hart Dynasty pick up the victory after hitting the Heart Attack to The Miz, with Tyson Kidd pinning The Miz to pick up the victory for the Hart Dynasty to retain the tag team championships, and a 3.5-star match. Very good match. One of the things on this pay-per-view that I would say, even though a lot of the stuff on this pay-per-view is pretty lackluster, if there's something you check out, I would definitely recommend to check out this tag match with the Hart Dynasty versus Chris Jericho and The Miz, because it was pretty entertaining. Then the next matchup was Edge versus Randy Orton. Like everyone already knows, Randy Orton suffered an injury within this match, and he suffered a separated shoulder in this match. And with that, obviously that played a factor into the quality of the match. But even before the injury within this match, I would say Edge and Randy Orton were pretty much having a very boring match. But at first it looked like he was just selling it, because they did something at the beginning where they're outside the ring and Edge, threw him on top of one of the barricades outside the at ringside, and Randy Orton was just selling his arm, and it's just like, oh, maybe Randy Orton's just selling there. Then obviously at the near part, at almost the end of the match, you saw Randy Orton, he was doing his taunt, pounding down the mat for the RKO, and then just grabs his arm, just gets up, and the referees, do the X symbols to signify that a wrestler is hurt. And then after that, they just, want to go for the ending of the match, just take it home. They go outside the ring, both not Rey Mysterio, but Edge and Randy Orton both go outside the ring. And this is just a double count out. What they do is Edge tries to go for a spear to Randy Orton to one of the ringside barricades, and with that, both of them get counted out. So no one wins this match. So even though the injury played a factor in this, it kind of was one match. It did last about 12 or 13 minutes, so I can't really give it a dud. I can't really give it an NA, a non-rating for it, but I have to, take into factor, obviously, the injury played a factor, and that probably did hurt the quality of it. But still, before that, it wasn't really that much of a match. It was pretty boring in nature, even from the start. And I would say, 1.5 stars, but obviously taking the fact that Randy Orton did suffer injury within this match. I'm just giving it a rating because it did last. It's not one of those types of matches I think you can give a NA or a dud to. Then the next matchup was Jack Swagger versus Big Show for the World Heavyweight Championship. Now, unlike the match previous, this is a match that I'm actually giving a dud, because this was just nothing at all. This was something that could have been just put together on television, not a pay-per-view. Especially a world title match at a pay-per-view was just terrible to do. Very short, and obviously everyone knew that Jack Swagger was going to retain some way or another, meaning that he was either going to cheat and somehow pin Big Show in the match, or, like obviously most people probably expecting, a disqualification finish to this match, and that's the way it went, with Jack Swagger getting the world title belt into the ring, hitting Big Show with it, then getting himself intentionally disqualified. So Big Show wins the match via disqualification, but obviously Jack Swagger still retains the World Heavyweight Championship. So this match, I would just give it a dud. It wasn't much of anything, and they're doing a terrible job of trying to make it seem like Jack Swagger has any credibility, because what they did post-match, they actually gave some credibility to Big Show and actually made it seem like Big Show was kind of worthy of being in the world title picture and in the main event, because post-match he beats up Jack Swagger. He hits him with a choke slam, then the knockout punch, and Jack Swagger's just laid out, and Big Show's looking very dominant, and they actually put some credibility into him there, but at the same time, they made Jack Swagger look even more like a jobber than what he already has. So they really, are doing a bad job of booking Jack Swagger. They need to start, if they want to have him rumored to maybe keeping this title all the way till SummerSlam, to have a feud with Undertaker at SummerSlam. They need to make sure they put some credibility into him before then, because why are they going to have him against Undertaker at SummerSlam if everyone knows, before that, oh, he's just a complete jobber, he doesn't have any credibility, and Taker's just going to completely squash him in 5 minutes. That's the way it would seem like now. So they need to put some credibility in Swagger. What they'll probably do at the next pay-per-view with the Fatal 4-Way, they'll probably have him, come out of nowhere and somehow retain the title at that pay-per-view as well, with him not, again at a pay-per-view just coming out of nowhere and somehow retaining the title some way or another. That's what they're kind of going with him. Kind of like what they did with Rey Mysterio in 2006. That's what type of reign it looks like they're trying to do with Jack Swagger. Book him as the underdog champion. It just is not doing a good job. It's making him look very, very weak, and is making the title lose a lot of prestige, even though pretty much titles in WWE, for the most part, no matter what title it is, are pretty much props anyway. But then the next matchup was the Divas title match with Maurice versus Eve. Just the typical Divas match, nothing really special, nothing much to talk about. Eve retains the title, 1 star at best, nothing much. Pretty much the piss break of the evening, even though a lot of other stuff on this pay-per-view was pretty lackluster, but that was, the women's match, didn't expect anything from it, just 1 star, nothing at all. Like I said, Eve retains the title. Then the main event of the evening was Batista versus John Cena for the WWE Championship and an I Quit match. Now, like I said earlier, this match right here and the Unified Tag Team title match are probably the two matches that save this pay-per-view from going in the category of, you know, a December to Dismember or a TNA Victory Road or WCW 2000 pay-per-view quality. I think these two matches at least made it not get in that category, but it still didn't make it get in the category of a good pay-per-view, just overall, you know, an average pay-per-view or a little below average for the most part, like I said earlier. But this match with Batista and Cena, another good match between those two. So far, you know, their matches, this is probably the weaker of their matches they've had, but still a good I Quit match. Pretty enjoyable stuff with them. You know, they did some good stuff within the match. Like the CM Punk match, at one point in this match, John Cena gets a little busted open. The paramedics come there, try to, you know, stop the bleeding and stuff, which this is the thing I really hate, which, you know, when they do it like this kind of makes it look stupid. Now, it's okay if when they did it with, you know, Rey Mysterio and CM Punk, in the nature that, you know, CM Punk is the heel, Rey Mysterio is the face, so Rey Mysterio is going to allow these guys to come in there, you know, clean them up and stuff like that. But why would a heel do that? It makes him, you know, look like, well, I'm going to beat the hell out of this guy for the most times, but, oh, I'm going to let the paramedics come in there and clean him up. Why would he do that? It just doesn't make any sense. That's like one of the times where it makes it even look worse than what it already is. And that happened right after they did a spot outside the ring where they did a table spot where Batista did a running power slam through one of the announce tables to John Cena. They did another spot when they were brawling in the crowd, and they got on top. They were, you know, going up steps, one of the balconies. Cena throws Batista, knocks Batista off there. Batista lands on a lot of security below him. Then the ending of the match comes when they're on the stage, and at this they were in Detroit, so, you know, the Over the Limit theme was, you know, I guess, you know, cars and stuff like that. So they had a car on both sides of the ramp, and there on one of the cars, John Cena hit the attitude adjustment to Batista to it, and then the end of the match comes when Cena picks him up after that. Well, before that, you know, after the first time, he just, you know, hits the attitude adjustment to Batista to the car. The referee asks, you know, Batista, do you quit? Batista says no. Then John Cena gets on the mic, you know, kind of a little cocky nature to him, says, you know, I'm glad you said you didn't quit. Then he picks him up. He picks him up for another attitude adjustment, gets him on top of the car, and he's, you know, teasing to hit the attitude adjustment to Batista off the car to the ramp. Batista says he quits there, so that's the end of the match. And even though he said I quit, John Cena still hits the attitude adjustment to Batista. And Batista gets attitude adjustment off the top of the car off the top of the car to the ramp and falls through the ramp, and the ramp just breaks apart. So John Cena wins the match, like everyone was expecting. 3.5 stars. This match and the Unified Tag Team title match are the matches I would say that I would still say, you know, this pay-per-view is a throwaway pay-per-view, and I would say, for the most part, stay clear of it because it wasn't anything that good on it. But if you check anything out, check the main event and check the Unified Tag Team title match. But then after the world title match, John Cena celebrating and goes in the ring with the title. Then he ends on the stage. He has the title, looks like the pay-per-view's about to go off the air. Then Sheamus attacks John Cena, hits the bicycle kick, and the pay-per-view goes off the air with Sheamus standing over top of John Cena. So a little, you know, ending where, you know, you're wondering what's going to happen next. So I kind of like endings like that, you know, either on pay-per-views or television shows where, or, you know, television where you're like, what's going to happen next? So at least it kind of gave you, like, what are they going to do tonight on Monday Night Raw since Sheamus attacked John Cena, you know, right at the end of the pay-per-view. So they, you know, had that suspenseful ending to it. So that was, you know, somewhat booked pretty decent right there. But like I said, I'll give this pay-per-view a 6 out of 10. Pay-per-view, I would say, wasn't in the category of one of the worst pay-per-views ever or anything, because I think some people have been saying that and kind of, you know, exaggerating that this pay-per-view was bad. But it was just, you know, a little, you know, close to average, somewhat below average pay-per-view. But, you know, 6 out of 10, you know, you get some of those pay-per-views within the year where they just have so many pay-per-views that WWE just has a couple throwaway pay-per-views, and that's kind of what this pay-per-view was. And yeah, that's it for my Over the Limit 2010 pay-per-view review. Alright, peace. Drew McIntyre, he was going for his Future Shock DDT to Kofi Kingston, and Kofi reverses it to the S.E.S. for the victory for the 1-2-3, and Kofi becomes the new Intercontinental Champion in a 2.5 star match. pretty solid opener, probably one of Drew McIntyre's better matches he's had so far within his WWE career. And I thought they probably could add even a better match if they were given a little more time, because they were actually having some good chemistry. They're actually working pretty good, and unfortunately, they only got about 6 minutes, which was pretty much just nothing more than, throwaway pay-per-view. And I would say close to almost average, a little below average pay-per-view. That's what I would say about this pay-per-view. And the first match of the evening was Kofi Kingston versus Drew McIntyre for the Intercontinental Championship. And this match was going along pretty good. You saw some good back and forth action, but the only problem I had with this match was it was way too short. They only gave it probably about a little over 6 minutes. And like I said, it was going along pretty good. You saw some good back and forth action. And the end of the match came when you continue. And since Drew McIntyre is going to be preoccupied with that feud with Matt Hardy, maybe we'll see an Intercontinental title feud with Kofi Kingston and Christian, which I think will be very good. Or a Kofi versus MVP feud. That will work out pretty good as well. But even a Christian and Kofi would even be that much better if they would do something like that, even though I feel Christian should be in the title picture, in the main event picture of SmackDown. But if they go the route of him and Kofi, I will name of this match, because it was actually going along pretty good, and it was actually going along better than I was even expecting, but ended too short, and like I said, 2.5 stars. And then after the match, you see Drew McIntyre. He gets on the mic. He calls out Teddy Long, wants Teddy Long to reverse the decision, make him the Intercontinental Champion again. Teddy Long doesn't come out there. Then Matt Hardy's music hits. Matt Hardy comes out there. Him and Drew McIntyre brawl in the ring. Then Matt Hardy hits the Twist of Fates to Drew McIntyre. So looks like you're going to see Drew McIntyre and Matt Hardy's feud. My WWE Over the Limit 2010 pay-per-view review. The pay-per-view was live last night exclusively on pay-per-view. As far as this pay-per-view, I'm not going to go as far as what some people have been saying, that this is like one of the worst pay-per-views of all time, or this is, something really bad. But what I would say about this pay-per-view is one of those WWE pay-per-views or mainstream pay-per-views that is kind of like the typical, throwaway pay-per-view, which is unfortunate in nature with this pay-per-view, because actually on paper going into it, it looked like it possibly could have been a good pay-per-view, but it was